Budget issues, Mom said, canceling my birthday trip to Orlando that she'd promised since I was 16, so I accepted it and started working part-time at Subway to save my own money. 2 weeks later, I found receipts in her office for an $8,000 cruise for her and my stepdad, scheduled for the exact same date as my 18th birthday. I stood in her home office, holding the printed confirmation from Royal Caribbean, reading every detail of their 7-day Western Caribbean cruise, departing June 15th. My birthday. The birthday she'd promised to celebrate with me at Universal Studios since I turned 16. The trip she'd described in detail for 2 years, showing me videos of the Wizarding World, planning which rides we'd go on first, promising it would be our special mother-daughter celebration before I left for college. The receipt showed 2 passengers, Linda Thompson Rivera and Roberto Rivera. Not 3. 2. My hands didn't shake. My breath stayed even. I pulled out my phone and photographed every page of the booking confirmation, the cruise itinerary, the excursion purchases, snorkeling in Cozumel, ziplining in Honduras, a couple's massage package, a romantic dinner upgrade, $8,347.63 to be exact. I heard her car pull into the driveway. Carefully, I returned everything to its exact position in her desk drawer. The one she thought I didn't know about, the one where she kept important documents in a file folder labeled Household Records. I'd learned the combination to her desk lock when I was 14, back when I still trusted her enough to think she might be hiding birthday presents there. The front door opened. "Jessica, you home, honey?" "In my room, Mom," I called back, my voice perfectly casual as I settled at my desk and opened my calculus textbook. She appeared in my doorway minutes later, still in her nursing scrubs from the hospital, looking tired but cheerful. "How was your shift?" "Fine. Made $42 in tips." I didn't look up from my homework. "Mrs. Patterson came in again and left me $5 for a 6-inch sub." "That's sweet." Mom leaned against the doorframe. "Listen, your father called earlier." "Stepdad," I corrected automatically. My actual father had died when I was 3. Roberto had married my mother when I was 12, and while he'd never been cruel, he'd never been particularly warm either. He existed in our house like expensive furniture, present but untouchable. "Roberto," Mom amended with a slight edge to her voice. "He wants to know if you'd like to go to dinner Friday night. That new Italian place downtown." "Can't. Working Friday night." This was true. I'd picked up extra shifts specifically to save for my own Orlando trip, the one I'd have to fund myself now. "You're working too much, honey. You should be enjoying your senior year." The irony of this statement, coming from the woman who'd just spent $8,000 on a cruise during my 18th birthday, almost made me laugh. Instead, I looked up and smiled. "I'm saving for college expenses. You and Roberto have been so generous helping with tuition. I want to contribute however I can." Her expression softened with what I recognized as guilt, poorly disguised as pride. "You're such a good kid, Jess. Your father and I are so proud of you." "Thanks, Mom." I returned to my homework and she left, her footsteps retreating down the hallway. I waited until I heard her bedroom door close before I opened my laptop. The photographs from her office were already uploading to a cloud storage account she didn't know existed, under an email address she'd never seen. I'd learned to be thorough. My phone buzzed with a text from my best friend, Alyssa. "Still on for movie night tomorrow?" "Absolutely. Have something interesting to show you," I typed back. What my mother didn't know, what Roberto certainly didn't suspect, was that I'd been paying attention for the last 6 years. I'd watched them book weekend getaways while claiming we couldn't afford to fix the AC in my bedroom during Florida summers. I'd seen them upgrade to a new Mercedes while telling me we'd have to think carefully about which colleges I could apply to because of financial constraints. I'd listened to them discuss their investment portfolio over dinner while simultaneously explaining that we couldn't afford the school trip to Washington, D.C. my junior year. I'd been documenting it all, at first just out of hurt feelings, a private journal of their hypocrisies. But tonight, seeing that cruise confirmation, something had crystallized in my mind with perfect, cold clarity. They'd made a choice. They'd chosen themselves over me, again and again, and they'd done it while making me feel guilty for wanting anything at all. My birthday was in exactly 4 weeks. Their cruise departed June 15th. They'd board the ship in Miami while I turned 18 alone in our empty house. I minimized the photo files and opened a new document, beginning to type with steady, purposeful keystrokes. Lists, timelines, resources. Every piece of information I'd need. Because here's what my mother and stepfather didn't understand about me. I'd inherited my father's intelligence, the brilliant engineer who'd designed defense systems before cancer took him. I'd inherited my grandmother's strategic mind, the woman who'd built a successful real estate business from nothing, and I'd learned from 6 years of watching them gaslight me about money and priorities, exactly how to plan, how to wait, and how to execute. They thought I was working at Subway just to save money for college. They had no idea what I was really building toward. The next evening, Alyssa sat cross-legged on my bed, scrolling through the photos on my phone with her mouth hanging open. $8,000, she whispered. Jessica, this is insane. Keep reading, I said quietly, handing her my laptop where I'd compiled a spreadsheet. That's just the cruise. Look at column C. Her eyes widened as she scanned the document. Last year's Napa Valley wine tour, $4,000. The year before, Atlantis and the Bahamas, $6,500. Wait, this Hawaii trip was $9,000? That was the year they told me we couldn't afford to get my wisdom teeth removed. I kept my voice level. I had to wait 8 months until the pain got so bad I ended up in the ER. Insurance covered the emergency extraction, but if we'd done it preventatively like the dentist recommended, it would have cost $1,200. Alyssa set down the laptop and looked at me with something like awe, mixed with concern. What are you going to do? I'm still deciding. This was partly true. I had ideas, fragments of plans, but nothing concrete yet. But I'm not going to pretend everything's fine anymore. Your mom doesn't know you found this? She has no idea. I pulled up another file on my phone. But here's the thing, Liz. I've been going through their documents for the past 2 weeks ever since she canceled Orlando. Want to know what else I found? I showed her the photographs I'd taken of their tax returns, their investment statements, their credit card bills, all conveniently stored in Mom's office, all easily accessible because they'd never imagined their obedient daughter would go looking. Their combined income last year was $148,000, I explained. They own this house outright, no mortgage. Both cars are paid off. They have $200,000 in retirement accounts and another $75,000 in regular investments. Alyssa's jaw tightened. And they made you feel guilty about applying to out-of-state schools because of tuition costs? They told me we should be realistic about college expenses. I pulled up another document. Meanwhile, they spent $3,000 on patio furniture last month. My phone buzzed. A text from Mom. Home late tonight. Emergency shift at hospital. Leftovers in fridge. Love you. I stared at the message for a long moment before responding with a simple heart emoji. Does Roberto know you know? Alyssa asked. Roberto barely knows I exist. This wasn't quite fair, but close enough to truth. My stepfather was polite, but distant, treating me like a house guest who'd overstayed her welcome. He works from home mostly, stays in his office all day. When he comes out, he talks about his day, eats dinner, goes back to his office. He's never once asked about my college plans. That's so messed up. It's fine. I closed the laptop. It actually makes things easier. Makes what easier? I smiled, and Alyssa actually leaned back slightly. You have a plan, don't you? The beginning of one. I opened my desk drawer and pulled out a notebook, flipping to a page dense with handwritten notes. Did you know that financial abuse is a real thing? I've been researching it. It's a pattern of controlling behavior where someone limits another person's access to financial resources while spending freely themselves. Your mom's a nurse, Jess. She helps people. At work, sure. I kept my tone neutral. But at home, she's been systematically making me feel like a burden while living a lifestyle that says otherwise. And I'm done accepting it. Alyssa was quiet for a moment. So what happens on your birthday? They leave for their cruise June 15th. I turn 18 June 15th. I met her eyes. Legally, I become an adult the same day they abandon me for a Caribbean vacation. Are you going to confront them? Eventually. I pulled up a calendar on my laptop. But not yet. Right now, I'm gathering information, evidence. You know what's interesting? Mom has Roberto's phone linked to the family laptop for automatic backups. He has no idea I can access everything. Everything like what? Text messages, emails, photos. I clicked through folders, including some very interesting conversations about how they're planning to tell me I need to get an apartment after graduation because they're converting my bedroom into a home gym. Alyssa's face went pale. They're kicking you out? After I turn 18, apparently. Roberto suggested it 3 weeks ago. Mom agreed it would help me become more independent. I kept my voice flat, factual. They haven't told me yet because they don't want to ruin my senior year. Jessica, this is beyond messed up. It's clarifying. I closed the laptop again. Because now I know exactly what I'm dealing with. They're not parents anymore. They're just people who want me gone but want to look good doing it. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Roberto. Your mother said you're working too much? Maybe cut back on hours? Focus on school? I showed Alyssa the message. She read it and made a disgusted sound. The audacity. Right? I typed back, just want to save money and not be a burden. Thanks for looking out for me. You're scary when you're like this, Alyssa said, but she was smiling slightly. I'm strategic. I stood and stretched. Want to know what else I found in Roberto's emails? I'm almost afraid to ask. He's been researching how quickly they can legally evict me if I refuse to leave voluntarily after I turn 18. I let that sink in. 30 days in Florida, apparently. They could have me out by mid-July. Alyssa stood too, putting her hand on my shoulder. Jess, I know you're hurt, but be careful. Whatever you're planning, don't do something you'll regret. I turned to face her fully. The only thing I regret is not seeing this clearly sooner. But don't worry, I'm not going to do anything stupid or illegal. I'm just going to make sure that when they come back from their vacation, they understand exactly what they've done. How? Still working on the details. I glanced at my closed bedroom door, listening for any sound of Mom coming home early. But I have 4 weeks to finalize everything. 4 weeks until I'm legally an adult and they're on a boat in the Caribbean, probably drinking Mai Tais while I'm here alone. You won't be alone, Alyssa said firmly. My family's doing a cookout for your birthday. You're coming. Thank you. I meant it. But trust me, I'm going to be fine. Better than fine. After Alyssa left, I sat at my desk and opened a new document, titling it simply, June 15th. Beneath it, I began typing out a timeline, hour by hour, of exactly how my 18th birthday was going to unfold. They'd taught me to be invisible, to not ask for too much, to be grateful for crumbs while they feasted. Now I was going to teach them what happens when you underestimate someone just because she's been quiet. The subway job became my cover, and my salvation simultaneously. 3 days after discovering the cruise receipts, I was promoted to shift supervisor, which meant access to the manager's office and a key to the store. More importantly, it meant irregular hours that gave me an excuse to be anywhere at any time. You're such a hard worker, my manager, Dennis, said when handing me the key. Most kids your age just want to do the minimum. I smiled and thanked him, pocketing the key that would prove useful in ways he couldn't imagine. At home, I became even more invisible than before. I worked my shifts, I studied for finals, I applied to colleges with careful strategy. The University of South Florida accepted me with a partial scholarship. When I showed Mom the acceptance letter, she hugged me and said, "That's wonderful, honey. And it's local, so you can live at home and save money." I didn't tell her about the acceptance to Boston University with a nearly full ride. I didn't mention the apartment I'd already started researching in Tampa, or the fact that I'd been quietly selling everything I owned that had any value on Facebook Marketplace and eBay. My childhood dollhouse collection? Gone, $400. My designer prom dress Mom had bought me freshman year? Sold, $200. Books, clothes, jewelry I'd received for birthdays and Christmases, all liquidated carefully over weeks. Each sale deposited into a bank account at a different bank than where Mom did her banking. Roberto noticed my room getting emptier. Spring cleaning? He asked one evening, poking his head in. Yeah, minimalism, I said, not looking up from my laptop. Trying to be less materialistic. Good for you. He lingered in the doorway. Your mother and I wanted to talk to you about something soon. After finals. About college? About your future, yes. His expression was carefully neutral. We think it's important you learn independence. I agree completely, I said, meeting his eyes with a smile. I've actually been thinking a lot about independence lately. He seemed satisfied with this response and left. I returned to my laptop where I'd been researching tenant rights, lease agreements, and the legal definition of financial abandonment of a minor. Because here was what I'd discovered in my weeks of research. While they couldn't be prosecuted for child abandonment once I turned 18, there were other ways to make their choices visible. Public ways. Permanent ways. I'd also been documenting everything with methodical precision. Every conversation where they mentioned money troubles while planning their cruise, every time Roberto complained about the cost of groceries while booking excursions. Every instance of them suggesting I should learn the value of money while they spent freely. My phone became a recording device. Florida was a two-party consent state for recordings, but only for conversations where there was a reasonable expectation of privacy. Dinner table conversations? Fair game, according to the lawyer websites I'd been studying. I just think Jessica needs to understand we can't support her forever, Mom said one evening, not knowing my phone was recording under a napkin. She's almost an adult. Agreed, Roberto replied. The sooner she learns to stand on her own feet, the better. We've been very generous, Mom continued. Private school through 8th grade, all those dance lessons she wanted, a car. The car was a 12-year-old Honda Civic with 160,000 miles that they'd bought for $900 and given me for my 17th birthday, but I didn't interrupt. She should be grateful, Roberto said. I was grateful. Grateful for the clarity of knowing exactly who they were. 2 weeks before my birthday, I had my meeting with the guidance counselor about college plans. Mrs. Patterson was enthusiastic about my options, especially Boston University. This scholarship is incredible, Jessica, she said, reviewing my financial aid package. You'd graduate with minimal debt. Have you told your parents? Not yet, I said carefully. I wanted to make sure everything was finalized first. Well, you should tell them soon. They must be so proud. I thought about Mom and Roberto, currently planning their packing for the cruise, and smiled. I'm sure they'll have a lot of feelings about it. That evening, I found Mom and Roberto in the living room, reviewing printed cruise documents. Hey, I said casually, can we talk about something? They both looked up, and I saw the flash of discomfort cross their faces, the look that said they knew a conversation was coming, and they'd been dreading it. Of course, honey, Mom said, setting down her papers. What's up? I've been thinking about my birthday, I began, watching their expressions carefully. I know you canceled the Orlando trip because of budget issues. I completely understand. Relief flooded Mom's face. Oh, honey, I'm so glad you understand. We just can't swing it right now. I know, I said sympathetically. So I was thinking, maybe we could do something simple instead? Just the three of us, dinner at home? Mom and Roberto exchanged a glance. This was the moment I'd been building toward, the setup for everything that would follow. Actually, Mom said slowly, Roberto and I will be out of town that week. A work conference. Both of you? I kept my voice innocent, confused. At the same time? It's a medical technology conference in Orlando, actually, Roberto said smoothly. Your mother's hospital is sending her, and I'm attending the tech portion. They scheduled it, unfortunately, close to your birthday. The whole week? I asked. 5 days, Mom said. We leave the 14th, back the 20th. I'm so sorry, baby. We'll celebrate when we get back. I let my face fall, let disappointment show. Oh, okay. We'll make it up to you, Roberto added. Promise. I nodded and retreated to my room, where I pulled out my phone and added their lies to my documentation. A work conference. They hadn't even tried to be creative about it. The final 2 weeks moved quickly. I submitted my acceptance to Boston University, secured an apartment in Tampa that I'd move into in July, and finished selling everything I didn't need. My room looked almost monastic now, just a bed, a desk, and my school supplies. Mom commented on it the week before their departure. Your room looks so empty. Just preparing? I said vaguely. For what? I looked at her directly. For change. She smiled, completely missing the weight of my words. You're growing up so fast. 3 days before my birthday, I helped them pack for their conference. Roberto's cruise wear hung in the suitcase, bright tropical shirts and swim trunks that he quickly covered with a suit jacket when I entered their room. All set? I asked cheerfully. Just about, Mom said. You sure you'll be okay here alone? I'm 17, Mom, almost 18. I smiled. I think I can handle a few days by myself. There's money for food in the kitchen drawer, she said, and emergency numbers on the fridge. Thanks. I hope your conference is amazing. I made sure my voice carried just a hint of something they couldn't quite identify. I hope you learn a lot. The morning of June 14th, I woke early and made them breakfast. Pancakes, bacon, fresh coffee. They seemed touched by the gesture. This is so sweet, honey, Mom said, hugging me. Thank you. Just wanted to send you off right, I said. Have a safe trip. I watched from the front window as they loaded their suitcases into Roberto's Mercedes. Mom waved as they pulled out of the driveway, her smile wide and guilt-free. I waved back until the car turned the corner and disappeared. Then I went inside, pulled out my laptop, and began the final phase of my plan. Tomorrow I'd turn 18. Tomorrow they'd be boarding a cruise ship in Miami. And tomorrow they'd learn that some lessons are more expensive than others. June 15th arrived with Florida sunshine and absolute clarity. I woke at 6 a.m. in the empty house, my 18th birthday beginning in silence. No cards on the kitchen table, no balloons, No small wrapped presents like there'd been every year before this one. Just a note Mom had left. Happy birthday, sweetheart. Sorry we can't be there. We'll celebrate when we get back. Love you. Next to it was $200 in cash, guilt money. I left the note and the cash untouched, photographing them both for my records. By 7 a.m., I'd showered, dressed, and begun executing the plan I'd been building for 4 weeks. My laptop was open to multiple tabs, my phone fully charged beside me, and a printed checklist sat on the kitchen counter. First call was to the guidance office at school, where Mrs. Patterson answered on the second ring. Mrs. Patterson, it's Jessica Thompson. I wanted to thank you again for your help with the Boston University application. Jessica, happy birthday, dear. Are you excited? Very, I said, keeping my voice warm. Actually, I was hoping you could help me with something. I need to update my student records to reflect my new permanent address. I'm moving to Boston in August. Of course. Just have your parents call to authorize the change. That's the thing, I said carefully. My mother and stepfather are currently on a cruise. It's just me here. But I'm 18 now, so legally I can authorize my own records, right? There was a pause. Technically, yes. But Jessica, this is a big decision. Have you discussed it with your parents? We've had extensive discussions about independence and my future, I said truthfully. They've made it very clear they want me to learn to stand on my own feet, Mrs. Patterson sighed. Well, if you're certain, come by tomorrow and we'll update everything. Thank you so much. Second call was to my mother's hospital, where I asked to speak with the HR department. Hi, I'm calling to confirm that Linda Thompson Rivera is currently on medical leave for a conference. I made my voice uncertain. Young. I'm her daughter, and there's a family emergency, but I want to make sure I'm not bothering her if she's in an important session. The HR representative clicked through something on her computer. I'm not showing any approved leave or conference attendance for Linda in our system. Is she scheduled to work this week? Maybe I got confused, I said quickly. Sorry to bother you. No problem. Would you like me to connect you to her floor? No, that's okay. Thank you. I hung up and added lied about work conference to my documentation. Third step was harder but necessary. I drove to the bank where I'd opened my secret account, the one funded by all my sales and my Subway paychecks. The balance sat at $4,200, every cent earned by myself. I'd like to open a safety deposit box, I told the banker, and I need to notarize some documents. Inside that safety deposit box, I placed copies of everything I'd gathered. The cruise receipts, the printed emails about converting my room to a gym, the text messages about eviction timelines, the recorded conversations, the tax returns showing their real financial situation. I placed the original police report from when my wisdom teeth infection had required emergency surgery, with the ER note stating delayed treatment due to financial constraints, despite our insurance covering preventative extraction. Every piece of evidence that proved the pattern, all secured and dated. The fourth step was the one I'd been building toward. I sat in my car in the bank parking lot and opened Facebook. My mother's page was public, filled with photos of her and Roberto at various vacations, always smiling, always living their best life. Her friend list was substantial, a mix of coworkers, high school friends, distant relatives. I logged into the throwaway account I'd created weeks ago and began crafting the post I'd rehearsed 100 times. But I didn't hit publish yet. That would come later, when they were in international waters, when they couldn't rush home, when they'd have to sit with what they'd done while surrounded by the luxury they'd chosen over me. Instead, I drove to Alyssa's house, where her family was indeed hosting a birthday cookout. Her mother hugged me tightly and cried a little when I told her quietly that my parents were traveling and couldn't be there. That's unforgivable, Mrs. Patterson said, and I appreciated that she didn't try to soften it or make excuses. We ate cake, and I blew out candles, and I opened small, thoughtful presents from Alyssa's family who barely knew me but had showed up anyway. And I felt more celebrated in that backyard than I had in years in my own home. That evening, back in the empty house, I checked the cruise tracking website. The ship had departed Miami on schedule at 4 p.m. My mother and Roberto were officially unreachable except by expensive ship-to-shore calls. I opened my laptop and pulled up the post I'd drafted. Read it once more, checking every word, every fact, every carefully documented truth. Then I hit publish. The post appeared on my own Facebook page first, public for anyone to see. Today I turned 18. My mother canceled my long-promised birthday trip to Orlando because of budget issues, and told me I needed to learn the value of money by working at Subway. Today, she's on an $8,000 Caribbean cruise with my stepfather, scheduled specifically during my birthday. She told me it was a work conference, It wasn't. I've spent 6 weeks documenting how they spend freely on themselves while making me feel guilty for basic needs. Attached are receipts, text messages, and recordings. I'm sharing this because I want everyone to know who my parents really are. Happy 18th to me. Below it, I uploaded the cruise confirmation, the emails about converting my room, the text messages about eviction, the recorded dinner conversations, screenshots of their vacation albums next to screenshots of conversations where they claimed poverty. Everything. Within minutes, the reactions started. Shocked faces, angry emojis, comments pouring in from people I barely knew and some I'd never met. I tagged my mother's page. I tagged Roberto's page. I tagged several of their closest friends and family members. Then I turned off my phone, closed my laptop, and went to bed in the empty house, sleeping better than I had in months. By morning, the post had been shared 400 times. By evening, it would be everywhere. When I turned my phone back on at 9 a.m. on June 16th, I had over 300 notifications. The post had been shared nearly 800 times overnight. Comments flooded in from strangers, from mom's coworkers, from distant relatives I'd met maybe twice. The reactions split into predictable categories: outrage on my behalf, defensive explanations from their close friends, and a surprising number of people sharing similar stories of their own parents' financial manipulation. But the most interesting messages were the private ones. My mother's sister, Aunt Caroline, whom I hadn't spoken to in years. "Jessica, I had no idea. Your mother told me you were difficult and ungrateful. I'm so sorry I believed her." 3 of Mom's co-workers. "We've been concerned about Linda's spending for a while. She's always buying designer bags and talking about vacations while claiming she's struggling financially." My high school principal. "Jessica, please come see me Monday. We need to discuss this situation." And then, around 11 a.m., the call I'd been waiting for, not from Mom or Roberto directly since they were on a ship with limited service, but from Roberto's brother, Marcus, who served as their emergency contact. "Jessica, what the hell is going on?" he demanded. "I've been getting calls all morning about some Facebook post." "Hello, Uncle Marcus," I said pleasantly, just sharing my birthday experience. "You need to take that down immediately. Your mother is devastated. She called you from the cruise?" I kept my voice innocent. There was a pause. "She managed to get through on the ship's Wi-Fi. She's extremely upset." "I imagine she is. It's embarrassing when people see who you really are. Jessica, you're making them look like monsters. They've provided for you your entire life." "Have they?" I asked. "Because I've been tracking their finances, Uncle Marcus. Did you know they make $150,000 a year combined? Did you know they own their house outright and have almost $300,000 in savings and investments? Did you know they've taken at least one expensive vacation every year for the past 6 years while telling me we couldn't afford basic things? That's their money. They earned it." "You're absolutely right," I agreed, "and they were free to spend it however they wanted. But they weren't free to lie to me about it. They weren't free to make me feel guilty for existing while they lived in luxury, and they definitely weren't free to schedule a cruise during my 18th birthday after promising me a celebration for 2 years, and then lie about where they were going. You're going to regret this. I'm 18 now, Uncle Marcus, legally an adult, and I have every right to share my own experiences." I paused. "But please tell Mom and Roberto I hope they're enjoying the Caribbean. The weather looks beautiful." I hung up before he could respond. By that afternoon, the story had been picked up by a local parenting blog, then by a regional news website covering the post under the headline, "Florida Teen Exposes Parents' Cruise During Her Birthday After Years of Financial Manipulation." My phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Interview requests from podcasts, messages from journalists, friend requests from hundreds of strangers. I ignored all of it except for the messages that mattered. Boston University's admissions office. "We saw your story and want to confirm you're still planning to attend. We'd like to discuss additional scholarship opportunities." A family law attorney. "If you're interested in pursuing emancipation or establishing financial independence legally, I'd like to offer pro bono consultation." And most surprisingly, Grandma Linda, my mother's mother, whom I'd barely seen since she and Mom had some falling out years ago. "Come see me. We need to talk about your mother and what she's not told you." I drove to Grandma's house that evening, a small but immaculate home 40 minutes away in Clearwater. She answered the door looking older than I remembered, but sharp-eyed and direct. "You've caused quite a stir," she said, ushering me inside. I told the truth. "I know. I saw the post. She gestured to her laptop on the kitchen table, my Facebook page still open on the screen. Your mother has always been good at presenting one version of reality while living another. You're not upset with me? Upset? Grandma laughed sharply. I'm proud of you. I've been watching your mother pull this routine for years, but everyone thought I was just a bitter old woman when I tried to call it out. She poured us both iced tea and sat down heavily. Your mother and I stopped speaking 3 years ago because I refused to loan her money for a vacation when she claimed she was struggling to pay bills. I knew she and Roberto were doing fine financially. I'd seen their tax returns when I helped them with some estate planning. She accused me of being selfish and unsupportive. I didn't know that. Of course not. She told everyone I was difficult and demanding. Grandma took a sip of tea. Your grandfather left me this house and a decent amount of money. Your mother assumed she'd inherit it all when I die. After seeing what you've posted, after seeing how they've treated you, I'm changing my will. Grandma, you don't have to. I'm leaving everything to you, she interrupted firmly. The house, the savings, everything. You've shown more integrity in 18 years than your mother has in 42. I felt tears prick my eyes for the first time in weeks. Thank you. Don't thank me. Just promise you'll use it well. Go to Boston, build a life away from them, and don't ever let anyone make you feel small again. When I returned home that night, I found 17 missed calls and a voicemail from Mom, clearly recorded in some expensive ship-to-shore call package. Jessica Marie Thompson, you take down that post immediately. You're making us look like terrible people when we've given you everything. We're cutting this vacation short and coming home to deal with this. How dare you embarrass us like this? I deleted the voicemail without responding. The next day, I received a text from Roberto. We're filing a defamation lawsuit. Everything you posted is a lie. I forwarded him a screenshot of my safety deposit box receipt and the contact information for my attorney. Everything I posted is documented truth. Feel free to try. They didn't come home early from the cruise. The threatened early departure was just another manipulation attempt. Instead, they stayed the full 7 days while the internet systematically dissected their parenting, their priorities, and their character. By the time their ship docked in Miami on June 20th, the original post had been shared over 3,000 times. My story had been featured in 2 national online publications, and the court of public opinion had rendered its verdict decisively against them. I was packing my room, preparing for my move to Tampa and eventually Boston, when they finally walked through the front door. Mom's face was blotchy from crying or anger or both. Roberto looked murderous. How could you do this to us? Mom began immediately. I looked at her calmly. I documented the truth, that's all. You've destroyed our reputations. I've been getting hateful messages all week. My coworkers are looking at me differently. Roberto's family won't speak to us. That must be really difficult, I said evenly. Being judged for your choices, having people think poorly of you based on your actual behavior. I can't imagine what that's like. Don't be sarcastic, Roberto snapped. We're your parents. You're my mother and her husband, I corrected. Parents are people who show up. You went on a cruise during my 18th birthday and lied about it. We were going to celebrate with you when we got back. No, you weren't. I found the emails, Roberto. You were planning to tell me to move out in July. You were converting my room into a gym. Did you think I wouldn't find out? Mom's face went pale. You went through our private documents? You left them in an unlocked desk drawer in a shared home. I picked up my packed box. And I'm 18 now, so this conversation is pointless. I'm moving to Tampa next week and Boston in August. You'll get my new address for tax purposes only. You're not going to Boston, Mom said frantically. We're not paying for it. I have a full scholarship. I don't need your money. I walked past them toward the door. I never needed your money. I just needed you to care about me as much as you cared about yourselves. You couldn't even manage that. Jessica, please. I hope the cruise was worth it, I said, turning back one last time. I really do. I hope every excursion and every tropical drink and every spa treatment was absolutely perfect, because it cost you your daughter. I left them standing in the living room, walked out to my old Honda Civic, and drove away from that house for the last time. Behind me, they had their luxury furniture and their expensive vacations, and their carefully constructed image that I'd demolished in a single Facebook post. Ahead of me, I had freedom, truth, and a future I'd built entirely myself. 4 months later, I stood in my dorm room at Boston University, unpacking the last of my boxes while my roommate chatted excitedly about orientation week. My phone sat on the desk, Mostly silent these days, except for messages from Alyssa, Grandma Linda, and my new Boston friends. Not a single call or text from Mom or Roberto. The Facebook post had been taken down after 3 weeks at the request of the university. Not because it was false, but because I'd achieved what I needed, and it was time to move forward. But by then, it had already been screenshot and shared across multiple platforms. Mom's nursing colleagues had seen it. Roberto's entire extended family had seen it. Everyone in their social circle had seen exactly who they were. I'd heard through Aunt Caroline that they'd become somewhat isolated, their friend group shrinking as people quietly distanced themselves from the couple who'd abandoned their daughter on her 18th birthday for a vacation. Mom had tried twice to reach out through intermediaries, both times with the same message. She wanted to reconcile if I would apologize for the embarrassment and take responsibility for my actions. I never responded. Grandma Linda had indeed changed her will, and she'd made sure Mom knew it. According to Aunt Caroline, there'd been a massive fight where Mom accused Grandma of poisoning me against her, of taking Jessica's side without knowing the full story. Grandma's response had been to send Mom a printed copy of all my documentation with a note that said simply, "This is the full story." I'd received acceptance to 3 graduate programs already, even though I was just starting freshman year. My story had resonated with scholarship committees who valued students who'd overcome family adversity. Boston University had increased my financial aid package. I had more opportunities than I'd ever imagined. Meanwhile, according to my sources, Mom and Roberto had quietly listed their house for sale. Apparently, the social fallout in Tampa had been too much. They were moving somewhere in North Carolina where nobody knew about the cruise, about the lies, about the daughter they'd chosen luxury over. They were running away from the consequences of their own choices. I was running toward everything I'd built from nothing. My phone buzzed with a text from Grandma. "How's the dorm? Send pictures. Love you." I smiled and sent her a selfie in front of my new bookshelf. A real wooden one I'd bought with money from my Subway job. The job I'd gotten because they'd canceled my birthday trip. Everything I had now, I'd earned. Every opportunity, every success, every bit of happiness was mine because I'd refused to accept their version of reality. The last I'd heard, Mom had tried to get me to take down my LinkedIn profile because it mentioned being first-generation college student with financial independence, and someone had connected those dots back to the Facebook story. I'd blocked her email. I wasn't hiding. I wasn't ashamed. I was exactly where I deserved to be. And they were exactly where they'd put themselves. Sometimes Alyssa asked if I ever felt guilty about the post, about exposing them so publicly. I never did. They'd had every chance to be honest with me, to prioritize me even once, to show up for the milestones that mattered. They'd chosen themselves repeatedly, deliberately, cruelly. I'd just made sure everyone else knew what I'd known all along, that love isn't about how much money you make or what you can afford. It's about what you choose to do with what you have. They'd chosen cruises and wine tours and new patio furniture. I'd chosen truth, and I'd never regret that choice, not for a single second. My roommate interrupted my thoughts. "Hey, there's a freshman mixer tonight. Want to come?" "Absolutely," I said, closing the last box. I had a whole new life to start, built on a foundation of my own making. And somewhere in North Carolina, in a house where nobody knew them, my mother and Roberto had exactly what they'd always prioritized: each other, their money, and their reputation in tatters. They'd taught me to be invisible. I'd taught them that some people won't stay silent forever.